About 2 years ago, local music was given a token 10 minutes on the youth programme, and it was handled very badly, mainly because the guy that was doing it was in lots of local bands himself, and he was just playing his own bands. So when the programme got rejigged, I got put in charge of the 10 minutes, and I started getting letters saying, hey, this is quite good, you know, surprise. And a guy called Pat, who's in a band called the Muzzle Club, started up a petition to try and get me a full programme back, and it's worked.
A city that's the size of Sheffield, you know, with no local music output, it's disgusting, really.
Yeah, he's right, especially it's just trash, because there is a demand for it. There's plenty of groups knocking out in Sheffield, but there's no airplay, you know. Like, they want to do an hour-long programme or an hour-and-a-half-long programme and just scrap it and give you 10 minutes slot.
Local music seems to become very sort of diffused, but there seems to be some kind of focus for local musicians to have a programme like the hard stuff. And when that was taken away, it just went downhill. There was nothing to aim for, even in a small way. Like there was nothing to aim for, so it just got worse and worse and worse.
At the present time now, there's only places like Radio Sheffield, the LB Radio, and the Leadmill.
Such as when I was taking this petition round, saying it's to help local bands, you know, to try and get them on the radio. And some people were saying, well, there isn't any local bands. Somebody on Saturday, somebody who knows nothing about it, I admit, I said, well, I could just name 50 local bands just like that. He says 50, he says he isn't 50, he says there's only one band, Def Leppard.
Obviously, you know, the more exposure you get, it's going to help. You can't do enough. See the programmes like the Radio Sheffield, yeah, and I think that's great. I think there must be more things like that. It's, the band's totally relying on that. They can't make it on their own, it's impossible. Well, I can't imagine us doing it without exposure like that.
I can say I've been in local music actively since 1977, when I was started doing like little gigs with U-Matic and stuff like that, and I went on to work with them full time for 7 years. At that time, there was a lot of like little local bands like Def Leppard, and we used to do a bit and this, that and the other. But they all got to be big bands. That was fortunate at that time, but people just knocking around in the maze bar, somebody like Def Leppard or U-Matic, and later ABC for short afterwards. I'd like to see that happen again. I'd like to see, I think the quality is there now for little local bands to suddenly become big international bands, and that's what OMK is going to try and do.
Well, during the time that I was involved with Hula, Sheffield did certainly have this sort of industrial, noise-making, funky sort of tag, but I don't think it was, looking back on it now, I don't think that made people doing it, and I think it's probably got bands like Hula and Cabs and bands that were trying to make, I don't know what it was really.
The area of the Human League and things that I weren't involved in the venue side of it, I don't really know. I think in the 60s these sort of clubs were really, really thriving. I believe the smaller venue, and obviously fingers crossed as well for the amount of money that it costs to set this place up, I think the smaller venue has got its day to come again.
I think Sheffield's sort of time for being well known ended with the Human League, the nights like that. There's been bands like Def Leppard or whatever. But there's been no sort of scene in Sheffield, so to speak. There's like no sort of much of the scene. It's just like different bands, or mainly studio bands as well. Like the dance stuff, living in a box, and people claim to be from Sheffield. Come back really.
People had a lot of really good ideas. Obviously, like there was an explosion of ideas with like punk, etc. And the electronic thing was on the shit-tails of it, really. I mean, as punk was sort of like dying down, people were getting influenced by Kraftwerk. And the whole thing cycled through to what we have now is, general dance music was sort of being put around by Kraftwerk at the time, and influenced Human League, Cabaret Voltaire, of course, at the time.
There was a time of 1980, when someone I was at school, I could go to gigs anyway, but there was loads of local bands we used to get, and we used to get really good crowds just for pub gigs and things like that. I mean, I was too young to get in then, but there's a better scene apparently. That's what people around then said. I don't know, seems to have tailed off a little bit anyway.
But the people that were making that sort of music, I think it's had more of an influence over the last 2 or 3 years with like more sort of national and international music, more sort of house music, experimental dance music. I mean, who would have been doing that sort of stuff 5, 6 years ago? And, you know, that's fair enough. You know, I'm sort of happy about that, and hopefully that'll lead. You know, that will still lead on to, you know, diversifying what's happening now with music. You know, you can take like what's happening now, which I think is the most exciting time musically that I've ever had. It's, you know, it's really brilliant, I think.
What is described as industrial anyway, really, are not we? I think reviewing sounds last week. They said it was like what industrial felt, and the industrial is just like an albatross around the neck of anyone who's come out of Sheffield. It's just a old hat phrase like that. It should have gone out with Cabaret Voltaire and people like that, and Hula. You know, it's not really descriptive of what's happening now. There's not many bands in Sheffield who are able to have that term applied to them. You know.
But the local music scene's important everywhere, really. I mean, not just in Sheffield. You'll only get good bands coming up into the indies level, up into the chart and so on, if there's bands starting out, you know, and getting somewhere, getting anywhere at all, really. And if they don't get a chance to play anywhere before an audience with, you know, reasonably good equipment and so on, then it won't happen. And that's why you tend to get all this, you know, this sort of garbage that's in the charts now.
Well, there's not a tremendous amount of interest in Sheffield, but I'm sure if you take the music elsewhere, there's a lot more interest.
Yeah.
Like I've recently promoted a Sheffield band in London, and they had a great response, better the response than they had up in Sheffield.
Well, before there can be any national music scene, there's got to be a local music scene for it to build up from. And you know, Sheffield, there's some really good local bands around who can pull it off, like put on a really good show and everything. Just like the main problem seems to be that people just don't want to go and see them.
The bands have got somewhere to start, as it were, before, you know, if you talk about a national music scene, things have to start from somewhere, and the local town reflects what the local people want. It doesn't always work on a national level, of course, but the bands need somewhere to start, basically, and they almost dictate the scene in that town.
Indie music-wise, not really. I think it's very same. Could be any city. There's no particular feel, no particular Sheffield feel. On the rapping side of things, I think things are very good indeed. a lot going on.
So you wouldn't consider there being a Sheffield scene as such?
There is a scene, but it's not very well defined.
How would you define it?
Undefined.
Yeah, I think there is a music scene, but I think it all depends on interest from music companies, record companies, as to how far a scene gets in the city. I think it totally depends on that. I don't think Sheffield's had much exposure in the music press, and so the scene, it's just as valid a scene as anywhere else, but it's hasn't had much exposure.
I think there's potential for a scene in Sheffield that needs a lot of encouragement from firstly the people in Sheffield who are very keen to wait to be told what to like by the press, rather than actually discovering it for themselves. There doesn't seem to be much support for new bands who haven't got a deal or a record out, extending any further than their friends really. That seems to be the network for local bands. There isn't a scene, so to speak, other than dance music, because people don't seem to be interested in sort of creating it. There's a lot of potential, but not a lot of interest from the people who could make it happen, i.e. the people who go to the gigs.
Personally, I live in Sheffield, so I know more about, say, Sheffield bands than wherever on the paper. So if I was reasonably set about it, I could ring up the editor or whoever and say, look, there's a band called Glass Hammers on, there's a band called, I don't know, I can't think of any local bands at all.
Have you had any feedback from, say, gigs or demo team?
From press?
From the press?
A few good reviews. That's it.
Supportive?
Yeah. They like it.
They thought you were great.
They did.
Well, I'm not an A&R man. I don't go around sitting in lots of pubs looking for local bands. But if a band sends me a demo tape, then I'll do my best to do a review of the demo tape. But I haven't really got the time to go out and watch loads of local bands. And we haven't actually got anybody who does go around specifically looking for local bands. But if a band wants me to help them, then I'll do as much as I can to give them help.
Press could be a lot better. Press is. I'm gonna say it's lousy.
I do my very best actually. If a local band gets in touch with me, I'll definitely do as much as I can on them. There's I think the people above me, they'd rather people famous on. I've got a feeling some people on the higher local level. You just want Kelly and Jason on every week. I mean, I do as much as I can on local bands. It's a bit hit and miss. Really depends on how the page has been set out that week and stuff like that. I'll definitely mention anybody.
Well, Abigail has been going out and about around the smaller venues and so on, just as a kind of talent scout. And she tends to find out what's going on, and she's very good at it. So she tends to miss very little. A lot of local bands, because a lot of them are involved in the university and the Poly and so on anyway, send us tapes and go and see us, and in fact we know quite a few people in bands and so on. So in that way we're better positioned than maybe some other people to colour local music.
Because Sheffield isn't well known for a thriving music scene, the emphasis is on Manchester and London and sort of the really sort of those cities, then there hasn't been much attention placed on needing to do it in Sheffield. I mean, there's the Radio Sheffield, the Sheffield programme, but again it's tucked away on Sunday night for half an hour. I know it's been extended recently, but there's not as much attention as it should get. You know, the Saturday evening music roundup isn't very well written. There's loads of errors and fans that are just written misquoted or just like putting with the wrong photo of it and as we hadn't.
It's not going to make things up. Manchester, if it's worth writing about, there's plenty to talk about there. I don't know if there's enough to constitute a scene in Sheffield to merit any expected column inches at the moment.
We're in the business of making money, selling papers.
Yeah.
Our celebrations and you give us good vibrations down below. Our says us set the show. The rhythm bells, minds and pain. Make sure like to lose your pain. Find scuffle our rebel rounders. Top mention and let us down. The student men in black presents shot down for the slaughters teams to us, how much you heard Solomon, I had to scash moments I just had to catch you all I can now children drop out of city. That's all you know. The writing's on the wall. She's all you know. The writing's on the wall. When I've been guard, I get better still. Too smooth and too high. Never thought you would miss tight. She's your wife and best of all. Life is up on the best in order. Soundbites holding away the stress. Something right natural in distress. That's all you know. The writing's on the wall. She's all you know. The writing's on the wall.
Well, they get to use top class equipment to start. They get perhaps a bit of experience in how stuff like how a stage professionally is run, how how more professional bands, how they work on stage, like getting to use such things as like a different monitor mix on stage to an out front mix. So understanding all that sort of thing, I think is quite useful for people. I think it's also quite useful in that it's if we can get press and so on to come to events, they get a bit of exposure in that way as well.
I think the best thing is that there's quite a defined passage that bands can go along. They can get a gig at the Hampshire, or they can get a support slot at Take Two, and they can move up through support to headlining at Take Two, or getting a gig at the Lower Factory, and then moving up to the Poly and stuff. So I think there's that's quite good that you can. It's quite a fine passage where they can go along as they get bigger and more notice. I think the main problem is that a lot of places, because they're venues that run profit, say the Leadmill, they do try and help bands. They do have like a new band night, but they just don't tend to be very successful. So if they're not commercially successful, then they sharp up in doing it. But I think it's like the Hampshire and the Beehive as well, where they put on local bands. I think that's really good.
At the start of the year, we did have, like the gallery. It was open every Monday night it was free for local bands to play. But then after a while, it just became obvious to the people who were playing that all they were doing was just playing to the mates, the same as whenever they play anywhere else, like the Hampshire, stuff like that. So that soon fizzled out.
This place can be a lot better. This place can give up bands a lot better. Like this is first night out. How many months?
We've rocked to Leadmill how many times as well, and this is the first one that really supported a couple of a lot of bands on.
Had the venue just come up to 3.5 years, we're more nationally known and internationally known, very accessible venue. It's now getting so that some of the national touring bands, well, I say some, I mean it's 70% now more national touring bands, and then if the local bands want to play, they've got to make an effort to show me they can be a support. I think some of the bands forget what support means.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult at the moment for bands to actually gig in Sheffield. And I'm not saying whose fault it is. Partly it's the band's fault because you've got to sort of rework at it, and at times you've got to pay out yourself, which we certainly had to do in the early days when I was a lad. And it's a case of building yourself up. And a lot of people think they can learn to run before they can walk. And unfortunately, you've got to play the dice. You've got to play the smaller clubs. It's like apprenticeship. You've got to sort of learn as you go along. And hopefully, after 3 years, as we say, we've now got to a system where we're playing larger buildings, getting money for it, and good money, and getting recognition.
The lack of good small venues as well. In Manchester, for example, there's a lot of small venues, or rather more small venues than in Sheffield. There's really nowhere for really small bands to play.
There's a Hallamshire upstairs at the Hallamshire, and Kiki's started, but the promoter absconded, so that's not there anymore. And Mays Pine University is anything of a small size.
I suppose most of this place is the Leadmill sort of big place to play, but that's the policy with local bands there hasn't been good up till of late really. They've got the Junction 33 thing now, so it gives local bands a chance to play on a Sunday night, but in terms of playing with well-known bands to get an audience, it's never been really that good unless you've created a bit of a buzz or you've done lots of legwork to talk to the right people, or they're sort of waiting for 3 months of the chance to do something before. And the Limit doesn't put bands on anymore as far as I know. The Hampshire's probably the best place to actually sort of get your first starting gigs. And then as I said before, the only people you're going to get down there is your friends rather than anybody from any whatever, press or whatever.
There are other venues such as Take Two, the university does a bit, the Poly does a little bit, of where local bands do get some kind of platform. But the problem we've always had is that it's very expensive to do. We don't get a lot of... the box office isn't good enough to pay for it, so we actually end up losing money on it. But perhaps that's a good thing to do, because we make money on other events, so why not? If we can provide something for local bands, we may at some stage earn and themselves some money at a later date. Why not?
Bands complain to me all the time there's not enough venues. I myself do quite a lot of promoting. I promoted last week down at the university. I promoted here in January. And I'm promoting again at the university in June. That's just to give bands a crack at it. There don't seem to be enough spaces, if you like. There's a few venues and there's not enough spaces for all the bands to fit into. There's just not the space at the Leadmill because of all the other events. There's no space at the university. Take Two is very active on the live scene, but just seems to be missing the crowd really. It's never very full.
But the booking policy is if we can put them on somewhere, then we will do. But because the local bands don't actually have the pulling power, and you need people in there for you to actually make the money and not go bankrupt, then it's very dodgy to actually have it.
a hand-on booking policy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's more that can, there's more that can be done. I think a lot of it is just down to us to do it, rather than wishing that something was, we could do something. It's just up to us to do it, rather than worrying and complaining about it. So yeah, I mean, there could be more venues, but it's up to, say, me, the monitor, maybe go out and find somewhere and open it and make it happen. And I mean, the energy's there. I mean, there could always be more.
I think the smaller venue has got its day to come again, with the amount of people that are going to see some of the bigger bands and the amount of record sales reflects that there could be more of a market for the smaller venue, 200, 250 capacity venue.
Play with discretion. Make sure you play when you want to play. Don't give yourself bad publicity by going to a gig that you're unprepared for with a bad PA, and try and get some good support slots.
Yeah, with bands that you sound quite similar to, so you might pick up on some of their audience.
And also judges and papers tend to come along to larger concerts.
Will there be certain venues or recording studios you would particularly just tell that you go there?
Well, venues take two are good at giving local bands support slots if you get in quick, and the Leadmill if they'll have you. And always give tapes to the Poly and University, but the Poly aren't very good this year, depending on what their Ents office is like, I should think.
Because obviously we couldn't fund a single by his own means, because at this stage there's no way that any band basically can fund their own single. So you've got an option then, but then to get a private sponsor to help you along.
So we formed an indie label, we remain his own label, and as Spencer went to Steve Singleton, and he produced a record for us, and we got 1,000. I've still got 990 left. So my mum's bought one. So he's got 989. So it's very difficult. You've got to make sure you get a distributor. You've got to sort of get a strong following, and you've got to play in a lot of areas around the country to promote the single. Because someone's going to buy something that no one's ever heard of. I certainly won't do. I'm sure most of the people won't. Most of the viewers out there. So that's true. It was very difficult with a single. And to an extent, we regret in a way that it hasn't been bought as much as we expected to. No one's really come in and grab a single and spread the gospel.
They grabbed it. If we'd have known that the right way to go about it, I mean, you learn by your mistakes, and we certainly have. That if we'd have known, then we should have got the sent them first, sent it off, sent the demo down to a distributor, see if the distributors in the first place. Because as we found out, that no distributor is interested in a single these days, because it's hard to push. And they want the people are pushing 12 inches these days, and that's the sort of thing that they're looking for. So for a single, unless it's an ultra mega good single, then they just say no, sorry, not this time.
And it's a business from day one. And when they come into venues and when they approach venues, they should put on this: we know what we're doing, or if we don't know what we're doing, can you give us some advice? And I'm quite happy to give bands advice. I'm not that far removed from the people that play here. I'm not, I'm not in some office away from here. I'm very in touch with what's going on a day-to-day basis. And if some man said, we want to do our first gig, I'm interested. Obviously we can't have a Friday or a Saturday night, and I certainly can't give them a very big support. But in terms of helping them, then that's us. But I think local bands have got to realise, or any band starting up, it's a business. And whatever their attitudes are, they're looking for production deals, record deals, they want a manager, they want someone to take notice of them. That's where the profile comes in. So if they're prepared to do plenty of knocking on doors and work, and it's hard as well, they've got to put up the good with the bad, as it were. I'm prepared to help them as much as I can.
Just phone me off and invite me to come round to the office. Not next week because I'll be on holiday, so don't test me. But yeah, just it's as easy as that. Really, send a tape off or give me a ring.
Don't take anyone.
I'll take anything from you.
Basically get 5 demos done to send them out to everybody that you can think of, all the local colleges, and keep on phoning up and seeing how things are going, looking at support slots. Just keep at it, basically, is the important thing.
I think the best thing that we've ever done, is financially and the way of getting people to listen to is just through doing a demo tape, I think. So I advise, I've been in bands before and we've not bothered doing a demo tape, and just get heard by anyone really. You're relying on people to come to your gigs, so So get rid of them tapes about the best thing you can do really at the moment. Just the filter.
To do with that,
Something, well, we use it to get gigs, because some places actually ask for a tape. And we're starting to send, now we've got a tape we're quite happy with, going to start sending it off to record companies. And, well, and Chris Vival's played it on radio, so it's a good idea really.
We need, doing it ourselves in an enterprise allowance, but in your own personal money to the band doesn't enable you to spend a lot of cash on, it doesn't enable you to take many risks. So like the longer you go on a shoestring budget, the more risks you can take, the more safe you have to play things. Playing it safe involves waiting. The longer you wait, the more disheartened you get. I think before you can get anything you need either A, that's a music press, or B, a company interested in sure music press. Long term wise, I suppose you just have to keep plugging away, that's everything you can say. You can't make it happen yourself without somebody at either end of those two things helping you do it. Which is very clever.
From experiences so far with the band, was there anything you'd like to change in the past?
Yeah, we embarked this year sort of all full time to do it, like run the band full time. I think that was the sort of step that you should make after you've got some sort of groundwork. We went into it from nothing, working full time. I think sort of where we are now, or where we might be in 6 months, would have been the time to let's do it full time, which we should have concentrated on maybe less gigs and more songwriting and more sending off rather than attempting to do as many gigs as you can. I think there's, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be that rewarding to travel up and down the country playing gigs, because you can't get the people to come and see you, and end up you're just out of pocket. So long-term plans, I think, will just involve more studio work. Attempting to forge contacts. Don't do it.
Don't do it because it's so painful. But no, go for it, because as long as you have a good heart and you believe in what you do, just go for it and just don't ever stop. Because if you do, you'll never find it. And there's been times where I've just sat home and I've cried, thinking, you just believe in so many things. And it's not about success or making money, or it's just sort of that communication being together like this. It's good. So it's enough to keep you moving. Spend all your money on it. Just don't start for it. Go for it. Everything. It'll work.
Well, man.